One time, Sanford Meisner said, you're more method actors than most method actors. And what he meant by that was that, it's funny. I'm sure you probably get this in your lives, right? People find out you're an actor and they go, oh, are you a method actor? That's about the only phrase the lay public knows, right? And what does that actually mean to them? Well, what it typically means is that you're a method actor. To them means the soundbite stereotype is that you are in character all the time and you live the part, even off screen or off stage, and you really immerse yourself in the roles. If you're a bum, you go live on the streets or whatever that is, right? But Sandy said that's not method acting. That's called research. That's basic. That's not method acting. And of course, all of you. That's the type of work we do in the second year, especially as this matures. As you earn the right to speak those words, you do whatever you've got to do, right? You do whatever you have to do to bridge the gap between who you are and who you need to be. That's not method acting. That's the work, right? But just the same, just as a little history lesson, as far as this is where look. Lee Strasberg was an incredible teacher. He was. Stella Adler was an incredible teacher. And Sanford Meisner was an incredible teacher. And all three wanted the exact same thing. They all wanted the same thing. Whether they wanted their students to do good work, to do believable, truthful work. Now, Sandy and Stella remain very good friends to the dying day, and of course, it's well documented that Sanford Meisner and Lee Strasberg had very diametric ideas about how to get to that truthful work. But they all wanted the same thing. So let's be very clear about that. And I'll tell you something else incredible about Sandy. He was not autocratic about his way. He encouraged us to stay open to other teachers, other information. And he used to say over and over, this is not the only way to work. You're not all the same. There's no right way or one way to get to you. Whatever works, use it. If you feel like that element of that approach works for you, use it, whatever works. His humility was a beautiful thing. He was not a dictator about that. And I'm telling you, if you find a teacher who is that way, but back to the point, just so there's just as a little bit of a history lesson, because what happened is, as Lee, during the group theater days, Lee was the elder statesman. He was in his 30s. Everyone else was mostly in their mid-early 20s. So Lee assumed the mantle, the role of the teacher, especially after the Moscow Art Theater had come and influenced New York actors and the group so greatly. And Lee began to interpret these teachings and teach it. And for a while, everyone was game. It was working. People were playing, right? But then there's a big row between Stella and Lee. They did not get along from day one. Big fight about this. But there was other grumblings, trust me. And finally, long story short, a big confrontation, and Lee quit the group. And he said, I don't teach the Stanislavski method. I teach the Strasberg method. And he dedicated his life from there of teaching his interpretation of the method, of the method. But trust me, Sanford Meisner used elements of the method as well, but there were elements that he was diametrically opposed. And if you really check it out, you'll find out that eventually Stanislavski agreed to these as well. And first and foremost was this notion about emotional memory recall, which is such a cornerstone of most method approaches, and an element in the Meisner technique that is critical. It's called preparation, but how we go about it versus emotional memory is dramatically different. And I'd say that this is the biggest split. I know if it's an oversimplification, we don't have time to go into depth. We can do that some other day. But the bottom line is this. Sandy believed the most important ingredient for an actor was a childlike, vivid imagination, not some torn-up childhood or past. I went through a horrible breakup many years ago, about 8 years ago. Brutal breakup. I'm going to tell you something. The last thing in the world I wanted to do was prepare on that. All I wanted to do was to heal that thing and be done with it. And now, all these years later, I did it. I did a good job of it after thousands of dollars of therapy and a lot of time, right? But it does nothing. So Sandy believed very strongly, if you're the type of person who chooses to work through the pains of your past and the scars and etc., that over time the meaning of the past is going to change quite dramatically. And that was just one of the problems he found with emotional memory and sense memory exercises as well. And again, this is an oversimplification, but I'm just trying to give you a brief history on this topic. Sandy believed the most important ingredient for an actor was a childlike imagination, a vivid imagination, because with a vivid imagination, there's no place you can't go. Think about it. There's no place you can't go. If you have a developed imagination, picture a 5-year-old kid playing in their room. Picture a 5-year-old kid playing in their room, having a lunch and tea party. They're so lost in this imaginary world. Well, my goodness. You get on a film set or on a stage or whatever, and you have that ability to pretend well, to have that imagination going like that. A developed imagination is the single most important ingredient an actor can possibly have, Sanford Meisner said. And then, as you prepare on whatever you create, right? And if you're sensitive, imaginative, and you can focus on that and marinate on that, well, trust me, something quite talented will begin to happen. So, the method and the Meisner technique. Look, whatever works. If there's elements from both, whatever works, use it.